Papa, I can't sleep. Can you read me a story?
Well, of course, my boy. I know just of a story. Inside of a dungeon, she faced a series of challenges. The first boss she encountered was a massive ogre, but it was too easy for her.
This dungeon is too easy!
She exclaimed as she quickly defeated the ogre and moved on.
Poddy, hello! Welcome to episode 37 of the PoddyC. This week, we have a lot of really exciting topics, but I'm not going to list them at the start of the show. We do have them planned, and they will be coming later, and they're all really good. Let me tell you, we've planned some really good ones, but yeah, again, no spoilers.
It's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. I think maybe starting with the what's the most prevalent one, right? Like I guess aug is kind of huge.
Aug nerf, yeah.
We're back again, aug boys.
So how much is it hurt by this? So Aug's got two nerfs, right? We had Ebb and Might go from 6.5 to 5% primary stat, and we also had the M plus bonus gone, right? They had a passive that made their effectiveness in M plus. It started at 40% higher for Ebb and Might and Breath of Beyonds, and then that got nerfed to 20% during Dragonflight, and now it's just gone entirely. So the combined set of those nerfs seemed pretty large to me for M plus. Dorky, is it still going to be like, do you still just play it, even though now it'll be doing like 60% of a DPS's damage instead of 80% or however much it used to do, but it's still just giving your tank armor or whatever, so you got to do it?
Yeah, so I know you guys were talking about aug and how like you guys think it's like not gonna be as impactful, but I actually think aug is still like by far the most valuable member in the group still. So first of all, like before this nerf, augs were pretty close to topping the damage meters in dungeons, and that actually wasn't the case since like I want to say season 2 of Dragonflight. You know,
Okay.
like remember in like season 3 and season 4, they've been nerfed pretty heavily. They were largely a DPS loss to bring an augmentation of ogre over something else like a Destro lock, right? Like Destro locks were insane in those 2 seasons, and we saw that in MDI of season 3. But like right now, they've actually been doing insane damage because they buffed the personal damage of augmentation of ogre. So
By the way,
I
when
would
you
say,
mean right now, do you mean beta?
yeah, beta.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So right now on beta, it was going from doing, I want to say like close to top DPS. It was one of the best DPS to, uh, according to like a bunch of augmentations I've been looking at and talking to, they've been doing like roughly about like 90% of the best DPS, I would like to say. But right now there are still some pretty damn broken DPS, which again we can talk about a little bit after. But part of why I think AUG is so broken right now is because this is the first time in M plus history that we're seeing tanks and healers that are actually weak with an augmentation of Evoker. Because if you think about it, like when augmentation was introduced, we already started seeing pretty OP healers. Like season 2, we had OP Bear Tank, OP Holy Paladin. Season 3 and 4, OP Resto Druid, OP VDH. And right now, like tanks and healers overall are in a pretty weak spot, but the augmentation just offsets all of those problems, and it's made M plus a situation where it feels more mandatory than ever before. And like I personally really don't like how impactful they are, but they make an absolute difference.
Yeah. When I saw those nerfs, I haven't kept up with how aug is doing. We only are just recently starting we like delayed a lot of our damage testing stuff because the game was just so like completely tuning was everywhere. Tuning is much closer now. Like I think they've nerfed a ton of the outliers. I think you can get decent information at least. But yeah, that nerf was definitely massive. I find it hard to believe that they would compete with, because like the thing is, you're looking at like top DPS, they're buffing like the most insane classes. That's going to like go down with more relevant tuning. They nerf their defensiveness to the group a lot. Like I know a lot of their defensiveness is buffing your tank and healer, but like also that like health increase on Obsidian Scales is like basically nothing now. Actually, I think it is nothing because they no longer even, it's not even worth it to take the talents anymore. So it's just gone, according to, actually, someone in my chat just made that up, so maybe that's just made up, but I mean, it doesn't sound worth it. Is it, how many points is that talent?
It's like
Oh,
2 points
I don't even
for
know.
So it would be
2%
two,
or something.
it would be
or
2
4?
points for 2% health increase, and then like on use 4%. That's pretty not great, right? Like, I mean, maybe it's worth it in some exact scenarios, but like that's definitely really weak. Yeah, man. I think the main reason why you'd maybe still want to bring them is just because deaths mean so much now. Like 15 seconds, deaths are 3 times as punishing, so it's just live and time the key, which kind of sucks. Because like if it becomes a damage thing, like oh we need the damage to time this key, and Augs have been nerfed as much as they are, like obviously you'd have to make that choice. But yeah, I don't know. It's a dungeon thing. I don't really care. But the I found it interesting in Raid where we've always talked about how you're going to change this class because anytime you nerf their overall power level, you're missing the mark kind of like who you're making the class for. The average AUG player is actually AUG isn't good in Raid. It's not. Like when you just buff your 4 best players, that is not a great class at all. That's I don't know exactly how good it is, but it's not very good. But like when you buff the right people at the right times, it's extremely, extremely OP. And I really think Blizzard is like handicapping themselves by trying to still like try to balance AUG between those two things. I think it's completely impossible to not make it extremely OP or make it not good for their target audience. So I think it has to be actually before people would suggest that it was party based, and that seemed like a bad idea because Wind Fury was already a party thing. So it was like, okay, well now you can't put any of your AUGs in the Wind Fury group, and like there's these 2 DPS groups that now has to be Wind Fury plus AUG group, but now Wind Fury's raid wide. I think a change that has to happen is it has to be made party wide in raid. Like that has to, I think any changes that happen with AUG in the future, it will make their job so much easier. I think the way Blizzard probably has to handle it is they're like, okay, this is what AUG should do. How much damage are they going to make AUG do? And then they're just like constantly battling this scenario of like what could happen with the most degenerate use of that thing, which by the way isn't even fun. The people who do that don't like it. Like across the board, if you hear people talk about like what it's like to play AUG and Raid with that super spreadsheety like add-ons making people's names light up when you're supposed to give them Ebonite and like all that shit, like that's not fun to do. It's like way less fun than the way you do it in dungeons. So like just make it like that, man. I think that change has to happen before the expansion goes live. And as far as the nerfs, I mean obviously I think the dungeon community, they don't want AUG to be balanced. Like they don't want AUG to be like, oh well, you get these crazy.
They want it to be shit.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, hey, man, when rogues were good for a whole expansion, when windwalkers were good for a super long amount of time, when one tank is good for too long, you know what Mythic Plusers want? They don't want good balance, they want blood. They want that class to not be fucking good for a little bit. There's already such a weird relationship with support classes and a lot of people who play this game, especially Mythic Plus players. And I think a large part of that is the fact that it's just been unbelievably overtuned since its inception. And that's just as much of the problem of the fact that it's support in the first place. So they've got to look at that.
You're actually so crazy right about the whole idea that like people just want AUG to be dead in M+, because there's like a crazy amount of recency bias. In fact, I was actually going over this today on stream. People like, so everyone's been asking about like tank meta, right? Everyone's like angsty to know about exactly what's gonna be good. So they're coming into the stream and they're like asking, oh, so it's gonna be VDH meta again, right? Because like I'm out here playing VDH, it got buffed massively, it's looking crazy good, and people are just like mad. They're fucking fuming that like something that has been good for the past 2 seasons is gonna be good once again. And they're just like giving out all these like ridiculous arguments, like, oh well, as long as Demon Hunter has Silent Sigil, it's just gonna be the best tank ever, but. Literally, this is like the worst version of Silent Sigil we've ever had.
We've had Silent Sigil since Legion, and they've only been meta like once or
it was
twice
better
back.
before too. Like we had.
That's one of my
60-second
favorite
long
like
CD.
arguments is you ask somebody why is specs good, and they just start like listing utility that the spec has always had. You're just like, okay, hang on, right? It's like, why is Warrior good in season 1? And people will be like, oh, spell reflect is so OP, and like, block is so good. They don't take any physical damage, and that's just still true all the way through the expansion. And that stops being. It's like, no, numbers OP, or in Vengeance's case, Illuminated Sigils was like turbo OP. The corollary to this as well is, do you ever get these people in chat that are like, you're on beta or something, and you're like, man, this spec is like 40% better than every other spec. They got to nerf this. And then somebody in chat's like, well, that spec hasn't been good for 4 years, so they should have a season where they're OP. I'm just like, what are we doing?
I mean, in a perfect world, everything is tuned great, like season 1 Dragonflight, and you can play anything you want, and everything's awesome, right? That everyone would love. No one would argue against that.
Of course.
But if you can't achieve that, they should really try hard to make sure that no class is unbelievably so good that they are played all the time 2 seasons in a row. Like, even if it's an unfair nerf, you have to fucking ruin that class, because like
all the people do complain about those then, right?
Especially mages. No, but they also need to acknowledge that, like, when something is underplayed and it's like clearly OP, something needs to be done about it. Like, it's not good to just have like this whole musical chair balancing of like, oh, like, hey, let me take my turn. It's fucking Feral Druid. Oh, but like, yeah, I mean, that kind of happened with Frost DK recently, right? Like, cause like Frost DK, they got massively buffed for very strange reasons from an Empress perspective. But from the looks of it, it seems more like a raid type of tuning where they're trying to buff every single target a little bit, because they were a little bit lacking in single target. But the way Frost DK works right now is just a crazy cleave machine. Like, you're effectively doing full single target the entire time while cleaving for massive amounts of damage. And like, I do want to go back to the augmentation a little bit. Like, it's actually interesting that it's such an opposite problem happening in both Raid and M+. Because like, in Raid, it's strictly a DPS thing, right? Like, it's only good because of its damage. Whereas in M+, it's only good because of its defensive value. And I've been making such a big deal out of it because, like, for tanks right now in particular, like tanks are at their all-time low, right? Because like the whole blue post and Blizzard saying like how like, oh, we want tanks to be healed again, and people are like trying to counteract that by having augmentation, and augmentation just like makes such a massive impact. And I like, every tank has noticed this that I've like talked with.
I will say, I think the defensive value of like 2 augs for Black Attunement and Zephyr in Raid is an underrated part of their strength in Raid as well in like last season. But I agree with your broad point otherwise, Dorky, and I think that the tank defensiveness nerf, I'm a little bit less doomer about how it's going to affect like me personally, but I'm a little bit more doomer now about how it's going to grief like tank participation in +6 keys, because I feel like there's going to be a large set of people that log on to tank, die because they're healer.
They just need to make AUG not good. Let's just try it for a season, right? So just whatever you got to do in dungeons, AUGs are fine if you bring them, not mandatory. Whatever that thing is. I was just thinking about this the other day. My chat was just like, dude, AUG's the worst decision they ever made. It's like, bro, if AUG wasn't meta in Mythic Plus since its release, you guys wouldn't even be thinking about AUG. It wouldn't matter to you.
But it's already like not that sick in most, like, okay, consider where most people play the game, right? Like the key levels most people are playing at. AUG is already like kind of actively bad this season in +10 and below keys, right? Like, I guess next season it'll be a little bit better because it is helping with defense as well in a season that needs it. But I don't know, man. I feel like AUG is already like hard to get invites on in the low end keys, and like,
is it actually? I actually have no fucking idea.
On live, I don't know. I mean, my experience, I've only did a little bit of pugging on my evoker, but my experience was that they'd ask you what spec you were playing, and then you'd say dev and you'd get invited, or you'd say AUG and you wouldn't get invited. But it's a pretty small sample size that I'm playing with. Yeah.
I'm actually curious
on that.
What the listeners have to say.
Because I mean, when we talk about the spec,
I was expecting
right,
the opposite.
It's so much worse in a uncoordinated group if everything's dying fast, if you're playing with specs
100%.
that don't like work with AUG well, or if you're playing with people that are pressing their CDs according to a random number generator rather than like on CD or something like that, like that spec is, I don't know, it's kind of beans. Also, like if you're playing in a group where people are dying a reasonable amount of the time too, it's, I don't know, basically like I think that it's, if they nerf it further so that it actually stops being good for us, I think it's going to be so terrible that it's like atrociously bad to bring one in a +3 key with an outlaw rogue.
I mean, isn't the problem with AUG, the main problem from what you guys are saying is the fact that
it's like
that
blistering scales.
Well, it's buffing tanks and healers in Mythic Plus, and it doesn't do that in Raid. They're two completely separate problems. Like, is there a way you could make AUG? I mean, it would probably go against Blizzard's design philosophy because, like, they buff everyone around you, and you're in a dungeon, and it has to buff your tank and healer. But, like, I mean, it seems like that is the main sticking point of like the bad design part of it.
Dude, imagine if they just brought back closest clutchmates, but as a negative instead of a positive modifier to how much it does in keys compared to Raid.
It's just such a bad solution because, like, it's like you still want to bring it for helping with a tank and the healer, but at the same time, it's like if you take that part away, then that kind of defeats the purpose of an augmentation evoker. It's like, wow, they've kind of failed at designing the class at that point. But I think for me personally, at least, the bigger point is how tanks are currently, and like it's like what you were saying, Dratnos. Like I don't think it'll affect people who are playing in a coordinated group, or like that have like a reliable healer or like an augmentation evoker in the group. But when you don't have those pieces, it just feels awful. And I've noticed this in beta too. Like when I'm just doing random beta keys, right? Like if the goddamn healer's not healing me or just doesn't know how to play their class properly, it's like so noticeable compared to before. Where like before you just had plenty of sustain and you had your hero moments. You actually literally didn't give a fuck about what your healing was doing. And but now it's just like it requires that extra coordination or like level of group play, which a lot of people have been asking for. But it's like it's problematic in a pug situation, especially as a tank.
Yeah, that's the problem I foresee with it, is that I feel like if your healer's bad, your tank's going to get the blame. If your tank's bad, your tank's going to get the blame. A lot of tanks are going to be like, this is stupid, I'm not doing this anymore, I'll take the longer queue time. And that kind of makes a vicious cycle of fewer and fewer tanks playing. That
this has happened before. Like this is like Mop was probably the highest anyone played tank, probably also because they just did way more damage than everyone else. But like ever since then, there's been a lot less people doing it. If you make tanking less attractive, like I was playing another random Terra's Land proc, but like one thing I noticed in that game is like a lot of our DPS were having fun. It was really, really entertaining. The healers were like, this is super fun. Like the healers are like, this is like among the best healing that's ever happened. The tanks, it's like super easy to tank and they do no damage. Like a DPS auto attacking will out DPS a tank in that game. It's so bad. I was sitting here just like, dude, who would ever fucking do this? Like, why would you ever tank in this game? And then I was like, okay, well, they're making it, like, think about WoW. Are you gonna make, like, imagine if tanks did like 10% of the damage of a DPS, or and also they wanted to just be spammed by healers. Everyone would just stop playing it, right? Like you would just, why would you do that? It wouldn't be super interesting. So I think they need to, I mean, I guess we're just going to see how that works. I think they're going to get a lot of interesting feedback in season 1. Like if they really overstepped and tanks didn't need to be nerfed and people feel like they hate being healed, is that actually what it feels like, Dorky? Like, do you feel like in a group right now it feels so much different than usual?
Yeah, some specs, 100%. I mean, obviously, if I'm playing like a Blood Decay, right, then it's kind of still whatever, because that is like I mean, I guess that's part of what makes it nice for Blood Decays, because Blood Decays always have that niche, right? It's
but
like,
isn't that good? Like, shouldn't Blood Decays,
in a sense.
If any class is going to feel like that, shouldn't it be the class that's actually made to do that?
Yeah, no, I agree. I was going to say, like what makes it nice for Blood Decay is, like, now you retain that niche, right? You are him, right? You're fucking Blood Decay, and you could just be the person that can sustain yourself. Whereas like a bitch ass prop out and like, have fun, buddy. Like you're out there shooting out 10% of your HP. Word of Glory is like, HP is not gonna budge, and like you could be playing your defensives extremely well. You're just like out here, like perfectly sitting in your consecrate and rotating defensives, maintaining your mitigation. It doesn't matter. Like you're still gonna get shit on by mobs.
So what's the? I mean,
your
I
HP
feel like
only
that
goes
just
up based off of the healer.
that just sounds like they've missed on Paladin, right? Because like Warrior's is the quintessential take 0 damage and get healed guy, kind of. And then like paladins are like this mix where they clearly reduce damage, but Wog is not anywhere close to Death Strike, but it's like a reliable fat heal that happens every now and then. Where like it seems like they've removed the fat heal from paladin, but they aren't reducing as much damage as other classes. And now they're just in this weird spot, right? Like I guess my one question I have for you is like, do all the tanks feel like they have their roles correctly, right? If you're gonna bring it back to kind of how it used to be, does it actually feel that way? Does it, like, are there tanks that, like, as a warrior, for example, there needs to be like you need to take no damage if you're never gonna heal yourself, right? Same thing with paladin. Do they just miss on that?
Honestly, from my experience, warrior absolutely is still like that, and I think warrior is like pretty close to what it should be. Like I'm like as a warrior, you're gonna ride out eventually, right? Like you're just gonna die, but for the most part, you're taking very little damage, and trickle
That's good.
healing will generally keep you alive. I actually feel really good on warrior,
Mm.
but paladin is like completely off. Bear tank definitely requires a bit of healing. Like your frenzied regions are pissed now, and your overall passive healing is like fairly low. Even like Demon Hunter feels a little bit in between. Like Demon Hunter, you're able to be pretty healthy for the most part, but you're gonna require some healing to stay topped. And one of my biggest complaints I've like mentioned in a video made about like the whole state of tanking is they didn't tune encounters accordingly because the whole idea was to have tank HP bars move much slower, right? And you're able to just like rotate your defensives. The healer would be able to keep you up, and you wouldn't just like suddenly die. But what was happening on beta is you had to be above 80% at all times, otherwise a huge tank buster would come and you're just dead. It's not like you can really push yourself above that 80% threshold without overcommitting cooldowns or like overusing healing stuff. So that was like a terrible situation, and they actually somewhat addressed that recently. Like they had a Mythic Dungeon tuning post that like addressed those exact issues, which was like pretty nice to see as like a M plus doer. I got to like do some of the dungeons, and it was definitely not as bad as it was before.
Did
So
they
you
hit trash mobs as well? Like I saw there were notes for a lot of
Oh,
bosses.
actually, yeah. Yeah, I was just gonna point that out too. Yeah, like there are some stuff they still missed, and there are still some outliers, but in terms of like bosses, they got most of them.
That's cool.
So what's your outlook on the Mythic Plus season right now?
I mean, it's gonna be different, that's for sure. I feel like they're going for a more old school approach, I want to say. You know how like people say like, oh, back in the days, like Cataclysm was great. It was like they kind of, it seems like they kind of want to go for a more methodical approach to dungeons. Like I swear to God, every dungeon you're just pulling one pack at a time, and if you try to ever pull beyond one pack, you're kind of fucking dead, man. Like there's something out for you. Like even Mist of Tyrannus Life, right? Like you go into Mist of Tyrannus Life, these packs are fucking demonic. Like if you're trying to double pull in a maze, like good luck with that. It's not happening. But you try to like double pull towards the end, it's like extremely tough. Or like the
Don't
staghorns, they them extremely tough.
I don't do a
I don't
lot of
love it.
Mythic Plus. That sounds not awesome. But I mean, like, well, okay, like, what's the most extreme thing? Like, you talk about going back to Cataclysm. You know what they did in Cataclysm? They CC'd mobs before they pulled them, right? Like at the very beginning when they were super, super hard.
That's a little
Like
bit
if
too extreme, but yeah.
yeah, that's the extreme. Like that would be horrible. But like, yeah, I don't know.
I mean, some
Yeah,
people actually want that back.
who,
There are people.
who are these subterranean mole people Brow was
Yeah,
talking about?
these are the mole people. I've been using that term so much. Fucking mole people. Yeah, the mole people are like I remember back when dungeons were like more methodical and it was about like
Those- those-
strategically planning out
No,
each
it's so
pull and
bad.
stuff. And yes,
Those people remember what it was like to be whatever age they were back then. They don't miss that part of the
and to be
game. They miss
dog shit.
they miss that part of their life. That's the
Yeah,
only solution or the only reason why you do that.
but yeah. I mean, they're trying to go for that approach with like healing and tanking too, which I mean, I've seen a lot of like back and forth, right? Because like a lot of it comes from the healers, and the healers do want to go back to that play style of like just having to heal the entire time and not have to be like worrying about doing any damage at all, which I like I can get behind, but I just feel like that's just not how WoW plays nowadays, and I don't know. It just like leaves an icky feeling because like on one hand they just like want a more team play oriented and like something where you like rely on your group, right? Like the tank, like the healer, the group relies on the healer, and the tank is there to keep the mobs alive. But one thing they're missing is that like the tank is a critical point of failure, right? Like if you die as a tank, it's over for the most part.
Hmm.
And so when pugs are having to bear this extra responsibility of like, all right, the healer's gotta keep the entire fucking group alive while keeping the tank alive. It's not the same as like back in the days when there were no mechanics and all you had to do was just heal the tank getting meleeed.
Mm. What about that new affix that came out?
Devour.
Yeah.
Oh, devour these nuts.
Good one. That's I think the first time that joke's been made.
Yeah, I don't know if any of you guys have you tried it, Dratnos?
I have watched footage of it only. I haven't played it myself, but it did feel a little afflicted-y to me in terms of like, it seems like it's going to put a lot of extra dispel pressure on your group, which I think is probably going to be fine in like 90% of groups because usually you're going to have a couple of spare dispels and that's probably going to be okay. But it is one of the like, it's funny that they took this out and then all the warriors and hunters were like, okay, sweet, right? We're good again. And now it's like, oh, there's another affix where it's like terrible to be a warrior or a hunter or one of these
Yep.
people without a dispel.
I don't think they care. Just heal me, man.
Yeah, but you got to heal for 75% of a
nerfed it
massive
for
health
50.
sponge.
It's a massive one.
50%
They
of
nerfed
a
it to 50
massive health
earlier, yeah.
sponge still.
Yeah,
Like,
it's still a lot. Yeah, like, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's healing through that because like basically if it goes off, it's like all the mobs
Yeah.
will heal and
The first thing I thought about is it's not even gonna be in high key, so who cares?
yeah.
yeah, that's what I said too.
But I mean, high keys for high key players, similar difficulty to whatever mid key players, and right, like you're tuning those tens for people who where tens are a challenge, right? So I mean, it could be just as big of a problem just for people that you usually don't play with.
Oh, it's absolutely gonna stink for people who are just like trying to overcome the tens. It's like a pretty stinky affix for specific group comps. Like if you
Yeah.
don't have the spells for it, it's you borderline cannot do the dungeons. Like I think we tried a dungeon once over like the past 2 days where we went in, we were doing Stone Vault. Pete was playing Priest, which is a garbage healer by the way right now. Holy shit, that shit sucks. And we couldn't get rid of the healing debuffs, and the boss just kept healing to foe. So like we just gave up and left. We literally could not complete it.
That is hype. That cannot be what they're going for.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, I mean, it is tuning. It needs to be cooked a little bit longer.
Yeah.
but
Also, yeah, priest
it's not the
stinks.
worst. Yeah.
I will say the tuning is a bit better than it was before. That's for sure. Like,
Yeah,
like
the last
three,
like 2 weeks have been really good
Yeah.
tuning passes.
three weeks ago was like, holy shit, this
Yeah.
expansion's about to come out, and this is what the tuning looks like. And now it is, at least like legible. Like you can kind of see what's going on, and at least they'll have a heroic week and all. But have you? Did we ever talk on the podcast about what dungeoners think of Mythic Plus week? Are you guys in hell? Are you guys gonna like? Why the fuck do we have to wait an extra week to do content?
Oh, that shit.
Yeah, that's
Wait,
one
did
of
we
our
talk
other
about it last
topics.
week?
No, it's
I
one
don't
of our other
remember.
topics on the list as well. Is
Yeah, it's right
is-
after what we were just talking about.
that and the myth track up to 6 out of 6. Another
Yeah.
important
We've
discussion
talked
point.
about that, right?
Briefly, I think so. I don't
Did
remember.
We did.
Okay.
We did. It's kind of hard to tell because we talked for a long time, like last Tuesday, not a couple days ago. Like, and
Yeah,
then,
the one
like,
that we turned into the podcast that was just
Yeah,
on
correct.
stream yapping.
so, like we
originally.
probably did. We probably did talk about it.
Okay. Yeah,
Darn it.
that sounds plausible.
Well, I don't think I remember asking about that, Dorky. So what is it? You have your ear to the ground with the dungeon people. I don't get a lot from dungeon people, but I mean, when there's like crazy outcry, I hear it. But like when it's like kind of whatever, I don't. And I haven't heard anyone be like, as a Mythic Pluser, this fucking sucks that Heroic Week is back and like our content is delayed. But are you hearing that a lot? Is that like fucking I'm gonna riot in the streets, or are there bigger problems?
No, actually, I haven't really been hearing that as much. Everyone's been complaining about the whole myth track going up to 6 of 6, and
Really?
yeah, because I mean, for an M pluser, right? Like, if you're an M plus only player, that it like mega stinks because not only are your pieces gonna be extremely delayed, but you're also having to waste crest on upgrading gear, right? Because like normally you just get like in raid, if you're just getting like 2 of 6 myth track drops, or like if you kill an end boss, right, you get like a what, like a 6 of 6 myth track drop. That alleviates a ton of your crests, and you will end up with maxed gear much quicker than ever before compared to someone who like only does M plus. So M pluses
Yeah,
are
as a
very not
raid,
happy about that.
I think for raid, it really, yeah, maybe they could make a change for Mythic Plus, but in raid, it definitely makes sense because, like, before, you were getting aspect crest, and with only the 4 upgrade things, like, when you got a piece off of any boss, it didn't matter if you got it off of Tindral or some other fight, it just felt like the same because they could all be upgraded to the same thing, really. So, like, now, because there's, like, 6 upgrade things, and your aspect crest, I guess, like, upgrade journey is longer, when you get that piece off of Tindral, you'd be like, holy shit, I just saved this many aspect crests, where you didn't
Yeah,
really
it's
feel
insane.
that way. You didn't feel that way last expansion at all. It kind of, for the first time ever, really, I think, actually, in a Murdersil, it kind of just felt like gear from every boss just felt like the same eye level, even though they aren't trying to do that. So they that makes sense for raid, but yeah, I can definitely see it for Mythic Plus. I guess like one upside of Mythic Plus, well, not upside, but like you, it being a longer upgrade path is kind of okay for the at the rate you're acquiring it, because like if it was the old upgrade path, you would actually be like super far behind. You wouldn't even be able to spend all your aspect crest. But at least with the one you're getting every week, like you're never gonna be behind on the aspect crest things you can save. You're only gonna be behind on the free ones it gives you by dropping at a higher raid boss eye level.
Yeah.
Yeah, and well, I will say for the whole heroic week thing, I do think for pug players and just like people who play a little bit earlier on in the season, it 100% sucks for those people because they're making the loot you get from the first week, or well, it's heroic week, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
the loot you
You're
get
talking
from
about Mythic
heroic week
Zero,
is,
right?
Yeah.
yeah, it is
That
so
seems wrong.
unbelievably
It
dumb.
seems wrong.
It does just seem wrong.
It seems like a typo. Like I don't think it's actually supposed to be that way. They even made a whole post about how, like, among other things, they were like, Mythic Zero is going to be a lot harder now, and we've increased the rewards for that. And then it was increased in season 4, and then now they're reducing it. It seems like a typo. Like I can't believe it will go live like that. I'm doing an interview thing sometime soon, so I'll be able to ask them, and I'm sure there'll be
Oh,
other
nice.
ones too.
We need a PoddyC interview. But yeah, so like if you're someone who is like not doing raid on the first week for whatever reason, like you would just be like a mega casual, whatever. Just like imagine you're gonna be 593 item level, right? And then Mythic Plus comes out. There are people who are rolling around with like 600 something item level, like well in the 600s. And if you're just like trying to compete, well, not even compete, but like if you're trying to like get into groups, right? No shot you're getting invited as like a 593 item level when there are people rolling around 600 something, right? Like that's crazy, especially if you're a DPS player. It just makes it awful for that experience when people just like fall behind in gear on the very first week. And delves do drop like pretty good gear on the first week, right? I believe. So it seems like
Yeah,
they're
it
going for that
seems like
direction
they're
where they're trying to
much
push
better
players.
than M0 loot if you're doing tier 8
Oh yeah,
delves. Again,
100%.
like that just seems wrong in a way that like I don't mind getting good loot from delves, but it seems like veteran track from M0s is like a catastrophe. Like that just can't be right. I agree with you, Max. Like, well, I hope that, but it's like they literally wrote out that that was the gear level for the first week of it. I don't know. It doesn't make any sense. It's that's gotta change, or cap the
Yeah.
delves during that week as well. But like, I'd rather
That also
buff
feels
them
bad.
zero loot than cap the
Oh,
delves.
maybe. I mean, maybe I could see the Mythic Zero thing being like, we want these delves to be the spotlight. We want you guys delving
Oh
this
That feels that
God.
season.
way. Yeah,
And
you guys
that,
are mole people.
I don't want to. I
yeah, wait,
don't
this
want
was
to have to delve. One of the strongest points about delves the whole way through has been that it doesn't seem like something you have to do if you don't want to. And if it becomes that to me that was like the characteristic of Torghast that made it go
Yep.
from like a 7 out of 10 system to a 3 out of 10 or a 2 out of 10 was how you were obligated to go do it.
Well, but at least it's only for like the first week
Yeah,
or
at least it
two
would still
where,
only
like,
be
you
for the
have
first.
to
And honestly,
I
like
think-
if you're doing normal and heroic raid, even you probably still wouldn't even feel that strongly pulled towards them. But yeah, if
I
you
forgot
weren't-
about I forgot about delves, to be honest with you, and that makes me
Hey,
think
but
the
that's
Mythic
the new
Zero
expansion
thing.
feature.
That makes me think the Mythic Zero thing is definitely intentional because I could
Oh,
see them
God.
saying that you don't want to do like, oh, you don't have to do delves for like the best gear or whatever. It's like some casual shit. But like for that 1 week, maybe you really want to do delves. Hey, they said you could almost imagine the meeting they had where they're like, what can we do to like push people in the direction of delves? Oh, here we can do this. It's during heroic week, and then like I could see all the things that would lead for them to want to do that. My only thing is, and again, hope I'm wrong. I'm not very well in like I'm not in touch with the mole people, but like I imagine that like a world where it's like you're doing a bunch of delves in this week because it's the only way to get good gear. I think people are gonna fucking hate delves. Like I feel like if you were required to spam them for power, the delve approval rating is gonna be through the. It's gonna be down with the mole people. Crater of Earth, right? Like it's not going to be good. I just can't imagine someone doing a week of delves and just leaving that week and be like later in the season be like, man, remember that 1 week where we were just doing delves? Like, God, that week was great. This is not that. There's no way.
Yeah, people do say
Maybe,
that about
we'll see.
island expeditions, but they say it in the context of like, at least in my guild, it's like, oh yeah, you guys remember that week where we did island expeditions and watched, the extended edition of Lord of the Rings together in Discord
Yeah,
while we were
in
doing
Discord,
it, and it's like,
yeah.
yeah, that was the fun part, right? And then like the islands it was like bonding
Purely
through
secondary.
trauma, right?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. Yeah.
yeah,
How did you travel yet?
You could say that content that required universally all guilds to watch either that or Harry Potter or some series together in Discord. The content may not be very gripping if you're resorting to just watching movies as a group of people in Discord, right?
yeah. And delves, I believe, are at that level of like, if you had to do, which the thing is, you wouldn't have to do that many hours of them. You just have to do like a few over the week, I think, before you finished your keys
delves
cap
suck.
thing or whatever. I don't know.
I've had enough time with delves. I've had enough of the like maybe I don't get it thing. And man, I hope I'm wrong. I think delves fucking stink. Like I just cannot imagine that there's gonna be just this like outcry of delves being good. It just seems not well made, man. Just straight up. It seems so mid.
I like my biggest concern with delves is like it's supposed to be something that's evergreen. It's supposed to be something that is supposed to like exist alongside M plus and raid, and it just doesn't seem that way. Like because I've always wanted something outside of M plus and raid to do that is like actually engaging and rewarding and fulfilling, but this just doesn't hit. Like at least Visions hit, and at least I was feeling good about it with like Mage Towers and even like Withered Army training. Like there's been many solo content that Blizzard has made, and we've talked about in the past that's like actually fun and engaging to do, but like Visha just doesn't hit for me at least. Like maybe it's gonna be different.
Yeah, I'm definitely prepared to agree with you guys that this delves, with the possible exception of the 13th delve copium train thing,
Oh
do
yeah,
not
I'm all
seem
in
like
on that. That's gonna be great. I just mean like that seems like a like an extra thing though. Like that's
Yeah.
not the main thing. Also, hey, there's been evergreen things that are much better now than they were when they came out, and maybe at the end of the War Within, delves don't absolutely suck, right?
Well, I was going to say, like, I think that they're going to not be compelling content for any of us. I'm not yet ready to say that there's not like a huge, set
I am.
of players
I'm
that
ready.
are not
I'm ready.
gonna, are that are gonna, like, I think there's a chance.
I appreciate you being on the fence. I was on the fence for a long time. I also don't think I'm now more enlightened as to how those people think. I just think it's so completely non-interesting that there's no way that there are people that are going to lose their mind over that. It's just nothing, man.
I don't know. I keep remembering that there are people who just love questing and leveling.
Mole people.
Like if you
Yeah, but,
like
like-
questing and leveling, I feel like delves are like infinitely repeatable questing and leveling that you can do to get more relevant gear at max level with however many people you want, and like a seasonal
Not if you do
track
any
in it.
rating or any Mythic Plus at like any
The
level.
people I'm envisioning do not really do those things. Yeah, that's
Even like normal.
I mean,
Maybe
if you
you're
do
right,
normal, it's
but-
got the same gear. I don't know. Again, like I definitely agree with you that having played through it, I have had the experience of like, okay, this is not horrific visions. It's not close to horrific visions. This is not the mage tower. It's not close to the mage tower. This isn't withered training. It's not close to withered training. Like, it does not scratch any of those itches. But might it scratch the same itch as questing and watching Netflix?
Bro,
for people
questing
that do
sucks.
that mostly.
Dude, the last time I've
Exactly.
enjoyed questing was like
Exactly.
Questing
can't even remember.
sucks.
Yeah. So if you think questing sucks and you think delves suck, I think
maybe
there's
there's some question enjoyers.
possibly there's a population of people that delves are aimed for that think questing rocks.
Yeah, but like,
and
okay,
will
why
think
wouldn't you
delves
just
rock.
quest and level a new character then? Why
They
would you
do that.
these-
But now there's
Yeah,
a
very, but now we have another avenue of that.
yeah, exactly. Like
Okay,
now,
yeah.
now there's kind
I
of like
hope
a
you're right. I
formalized
hope
end
you're
game
right.
thing of it.
I hope I'm fucking so wrong, by the way. It benefits me and all of us if WoW is awesome and everyone's loving it, right? I can't see it.
I mean,
can't
I
see
kind
it
of
at
hope
all.
you're right. I kind of hope that, in fact, they should make delves for us instead of suck for us. Like, I would, if the takeaway from this is like, oh, they should have done
Yeah.
horrific visions again, and that's what they realize, and then they make horrific visions again. Like, that's poggers. I'd be happy with that as a good outcome as well for delves. But I think either of those cases would be a win. The only thing that would be a real loss with delves is if they just like put a bunch of work into all the stuff that they've done with it, and then like it's not really for anybody. Nobody likes it. They leave it like it is. They abandon it after the expansion, and like it was all for nothing, and nobody liked it. That would be the fail case.
Oh, that's terminal. That's terminal. And another thing that's terminal, I know we kind of talked about this last week, man. But it's 1 week closer. They've started like their marketing campaigns a little bit. Guys, there's an incredibly low amount of hype for the War Within.
Yeah.
Like, I think I made a prediction at one point where I was like, I used all these different things of like, this is how popular the expansion is going to be. It's going to be this massive release. I was insanely wrong. Like, this is going to be. I even talked to a few friends like North play WoW. They're like, yeah, maybe I'll play. Like, dude, but even before Dragonflight, they were like fucking fiending for WoW. Before Shadowlands, they were fiending for WoW. This is like totally different. I don't see a large amount of people being like it's WoW time again, even though there's nothing else going on. It's a great release window,
No,
but it's
there's
just
actually there's a bit going on. I would say like there's definitely a bunch of like game releases coming out.
Are
what?
there?
What
Well, I
games?
know there's Black Myth Wukong and I can't remember what else, but there's like some other things. Oh, yeah, there's also Throne and Liberty. That's like another thing coming out soon.
Oh, dude.
Okay, yeah, I mean, but you know, there's
I
some
mean,
stuff coming out.
no, okay, before the Throne and Liberty thing, that's just like a BDO style MMO. That's the idea of Throne and Liberty. I saw the beta of it. It's not really my kind of game, but there are people, to Dorky's point, that like just travel and just do new MMOs when they come out. There's a lot of those people, and that may get some of them, but I don't think like Throne and Liberty is taking a large part of WoW. So I don't think that matters. Black Myth Wukong did look really cool. But I think for an RPG or Souls, is it a Souls like? It looks kind of Soulsy.
It's more like God of War, I want to say.
So just like a good
It's
RPG.
like an action, yeah,
Good RPG.
like an action
Uh,
RPG.
Yeah. Okay. Good RPG. Okay. Yeah, but that game looks sick. I think that game looks sick, and it's probably really popular with like gamers. But like that's not going to get the kind of draw that like an Elden Ring would. Like if an Elden Ring was releasing during like a WoW thing, I think that'd be massive. But I don't think this game's going to pull, even like a fraction almost of that of like if there's some kind of scale to measure how many people would choose to not play this game because that one's coming out, I think it would be a fraction.
Yeah, I mean, I do think there were probably like some other things coming out too. Like I know people have been talking about how there's just a lot going on in the gaming space.
Guild
over,
Wars
like, the next
2
few months.
expansion, I believe. Final
Yeah.
Fantasy expansion just came out, but I think that's like kind of
They just got their raid. Yeah, like,
their
just
raids
got
over. Like so
done.
that's all like that'll be well done before then. The Diablo season is 3 weeks before.
Yeah, that's coming out
I
like
think
in
this
a
Tuesday.
few days. Yeah,
Yeah, a few days. So
we logging in.
I think so. I asked Shroud if he wanted to do it because I have a other potential thing I could do, like a sponsored stream. But like if he and a few guys wanted to game for a few days, season 4 was great.
Yeah.
So like really like again I don't we haven't talked about this a ton, but like if you guys are prone to liking ARPGs, the season 4 of Diablo 4, the changes they made to the game was amazing. It was an amazing season. I know Dratnos played it an insane amount more than me, but I had a blast.
Dude, yeah, I went ham on that D4 season. Like I think I spent like a couple hundred hours on that season, which all the previous D4 seasons were probably like 10 or something, 20. So
Yeah, it's a banger.
Yeah.
But I don't know about the new season. I don't know anything about the new season. I know like the main, like there's a new expansion coming out, and that's after the WoW expansion, and that expansion has a new class that looks insanely cool.
Yeah.
Like actually incredibly fun. And
That's just mad
that
expensive though, right? That expansion.
I think
I don't
it
know.
is a higher price point, yeah, but all
I
money for
don't know, actually
games
don't
is
answer that.
yeah.
Yeah,
Let's
get
see.
milked.
Diablo 4 expansion.
I don't even know if I want to play it, but
Vessel
looks
of
expensive.
Hatred.
Have you played since season 4?
no.
If
last
you
I
like
played was, literally
RPGs at
season
all,
one.
I cannot possibly recommend playing Diablo 4 after the most recent changes. I know nothing about season 5, know nothing about the expansion, but like it is absolutely worth being like, oh, am I going to give Diablo a second try? Absolutely. Like it is so much better than release. Pre-purchase now, Vessel of Hatred.
Yeah,
It is
I'm going through that.
it's $40,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah.
Thought it was more.
You could get
Yeah, you can get the
I mean,
ultimate
they have a
edition
giga.
for 90
I mean, they
bucks.
have a giga. Yeah, I'll see what the ultimate edition gives you. Oh, if it's early access, I'm gonna blow up. I
Oh,
hate
yeah,
this.
that's gonna-
I
that's
hate
gonna be
this
good.
shit. I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. MMOs,
Yeah, I was actually
ARPGs,
curious.
even like just console games. Like what?
It doesn't look
I
like
wish...
it this time. Yeah.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
All right, I'm reeing for no reason.
Yeah.
Let's go.
But good. No, I mean, I continue your rant. It's a good rant.
Well, I mean,
Early access sucks.
I just think everyone should just constantly tell the developer of your favorite game that you fucking hate when they do this, because not enough people do that, so they all think they can get away with it. And now, for the first time probably ever, we're having an MMO release with early access, which is totally embarrassing. So, I hate it. I wish it
The
stopped.
problem is people vote with their wallets.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
a
yeah,
lot of
me
people
too.
are-
Because
yeah.
guess what? I hate it. You know what I'm gonna be doing? I'm gonna be. Ain't no way I'm not playing when that when that shit comes out, right?
God,
But also, I mean, part of that is also that like streaming. You kind of just have to stream the beginning of an expansion. You know,
yeah.
that's where all the dollars are at. I'm gonna do
Guys,
that.
I forgot. Maybe Frank will edit this to the very front of the show, but I forgot to mention, by the way, that Dorky
That's
did
it.
a
You forgot
a
to
special
record.
bedtime, a special bedtime story for our patrons. By the way, that's a little
Oh,
bit of
yes.
a derail, but I just remembered that I was supposed to say that at the start. So I don't know. He'll maybe
I didn't
he'll make
think
me do
this
an
I
would
can
intro.
give you a
become
little
reality.
anecdote from it. Frank wanted me to record some voice lines for it, so I was involved. And he was like, make it sound like you're a girl. And I was like, okay. And then it just sounds, for whatever reason, I just sound very much like Mickey Mouse. And I think it probably turned, I don't know why.
I actually haven't heard it.
I don't know. I haven't heard it either, but because I hate listening to recordings of myself. But
Same.
yeah, apparently he said, yeah, just sound like a girl and I'll turn the distortion up to 1,000. So if you want to hear a super distorted, weird Mickey Mouse girl voice and Dorky reading a bedtime story, then go for it.
That sounds like a crazy story.
Oh yeah.
Also, there's not a drama time. I don't know if it's going to come out in time for this weekend, but the next one we have is extremely juicy and long. So, stay tuned.
Yeah, stay subbed up to that Patreon. Keep on. Yeah, we'll start adding early access to the shows soon as well, since we all love early
that's
access
gonna
You
so
be
know
much.
lit.
that people actually do
Yeah,
that
yeah.
for a podcast. That is a
Yeah, it'll
that is
release 2
a-
days earlier.
There's one that I watched that's a week earlier. You have to
Oh.
subscribe. Yeah, they use some service. Well, no free ads, but they use some service where you can subscribe to it, and you can. They have some other benefits, but it's mainly like subscribing to hear the episode a week early, which is
For us, that would be so bad because like it's we're
that
talking
would
about
be-
patch
Yeah, it
notes that
wouldn't
are
work.
just like completely
Yeah, that would
irrelevant.
actually
yeah,
be
yeah.
crazy.
This podcast content you could listen to it any week and it would be the same. So
That's fair. That's a lot less offensive than if we were to put a.
I think it's pretty offensive. Still, yeah. I don't like greedy stuff.
Yeah, I don't like stuff that feels. That's the thing about the early access is like, for games, is it just feels like icky and greedy. Even though they've taken the right steps to mitigate it for WoW to not be super pay to win, as long as they don't have any super big exploits in those first couple days. Like, it is objectively not going to matter much whether you play during early access or not for your character's power or anything. It's just for fun. But like,
I remember in when Diablo 4 first released, they had that bullshit early access thing. And I remember playing it, and I was like, there were some server issues, but it was like kind of fine after a few days. And I was just like thinking like, oh well, everyone's like me, and I'm definitely gonna get it early. So everyone's gonna play then. Why would you want to play the game late? And then the weekend came around when the game like actually came out, and it was like, holy shit! Like they're like probably a tenth of the amount of people who bought that game to play it right away got the early access thing. And I just I mean, I'm just, you can only think the way that I think, right? I just assumed it would be a lot more people, but a lot more people wait. I don't know if people are gonna feel like they're behind. I just want to spread this good word that if you either can't afford the deluxe edition, or you feel like you're gonna be behind your friends, or like it does not matter to level 3 days early. You will miss absolutely nothing with your character's power, at least. So don't feel like you have to pay them for that because you just don't understand how the beginning of an expansion works. It's completely not necessary.
Yeah, unless you're slow as shit. If you're like super slow with leveling, you're just like taking your time, then absolutely.
If you need all
fork
2 of
over
those
the
weeks,
money,
yeah,
Maybe some friendly mole people.
fucking
yeah,
some friendly bow people.
yeah.
Need some time to unearth and get ready to level. Let's go.
Got it. Like, I still want to talk about that a little bit. Like, man, but my
What, the mole
biggest
people?
gripe, yeah, with the mole people and their content is not their content. Like, I don't have an issue with their content. Like, I just feel like there needs to be something well served for
Mm.
the players who just want solo content. Because like I think there's like a growing player base of just like not necessarily solo content, but like people who don't have that time to dedicate to like a set group of players to play with. Like you know, I mean, I'm sure they have like friends and like guildies that they would love to play with, but they just don't have time for that shit. And like you know, they can't afford to raid at a set schedule or like do M plus with a static group. Like these guys need some type of content out there that's fun and engaging and fulfilling in the same way that M plus and raid is. Like it's something Growl talked about too. There needs to be something more fulfilling
Well,
for those types of players.
so you said they're growing. You think that's growing? You think the amount of people that play the game that way is growing rather than the amount of people that
Oh,
like I think you
100%.
so I mean the argument for that is all these people used to play a lot and do all this other stuff, but now they're married and have kids and just still play WoW. That's probably
Yeah.
the or have a job and grew up whatever. Because I'm thinking like I mean there's definitely more people that interact with like the end game loop, you know, every season. I think more now than in 2016. And I remember seeing some stat. I'm like super making this up. Do not hold me to this, but I saw like some stat of like the amount of people that do some normal raid or normal boss or finish the normal raid and stuff like that. And that number since Legion, and that number has like proportionally gone up. Like more percentage of the player base do at least like that level of content, which would make me think that that amount of people is shrinking. But I could also see the argument where it's like, okay, well, more of those people are getting married and have less time to do this, and they have kids and shit. So I don't really know the answer to that. I just wanted to point out.
I think it's just like more people are pugging in general now, like rather than playing with their guild or their group of friends that they used to be able
Really,
to. Yeah, I personally think there's just like
that's
a lot of people
surprising to
bugging,
me.
whether it's raid or M plus, you know, like that type of player needs something that's as fulfilling as it was back then when we were playing, you know, hard raids or whatever it may be.
Yeah, I mean, I do agree that if there was like a Horrific Visions ranked mode delve thing, I don't know, not ranked mode, but like a Horrific Visions type system as a fully supported expansion feature, like that would be super sick for me personally. My YouTube video that has gotten the most views ever was a Horrific Visions video as well. Like, so there are people that engaged with that a lot, although again, it was like required to do so if you were a raider or an M pluser or a PvPer, right? To get all your stuff. So maybe that is something that if it sort of became a separate track that was optional, that wouldn't be as true. But I feel like it would be, like, because it would just be so, you know, simple to engage with at any time. But I don't know. I'm going in circles here, but I'm pretty much with you guys on the delves for us and for all the people we know. I still just think maybe there is a large uncontacted set of people that never go on Twitch that are
Uncontacted.
yeah, like
I mean, 100%. Like
you know the exactly, yeah. It's like
The mole people bit is so good. It's an incredible
I
bit.
think when the game comes out, I definitely want to see.
I want
what
to
the
interact with
response
them.
is.
I want to contact a tribe of mole people and get a representative from them and just hear their thoughts.
Yeah, and stuff, dude. People always that's one of the most common comments under a lot of our podcast or discussion videos or whatever is like, you guys should get like an average
I hate
player in these things, which
we talk about this all the time. It's the hardest. That is the single hardest guest you could ever get, is someone who is super casual, doesn't play the game a lot, doesn't think about it as much as we do, but also they're a super interesting podcast guest and they know a lot about all these things and have thought about them and would bring good conversation to the table like that. We don't know any of those people. That person is so, I mean, you usually put it better than me. It's it's so hard to find.
Yeah, that's a combination of traits that if it exists in somebody, it's like a very temporary state before they then usually become more hardcore and more engaged with the game, or
definitely. Yeah.
Or it's also just a set of people that never go on YouTube or Twitch and would be impossible to get to.
Contact. Yeah, they're uncontacted tribe. That's
exactly.
What I mean. We need to find a way to contact them.
Yeah. All right. What other stuff we got to yap about? Anyone got any more stuff? I have a long list of topics for this week's show, of course, but just giving you guys the opportunity to add anything further to it. Go once.
I don't think so. We kind of talked about the raid today.
Yeah.
On my stream. I don't think there's a lot of reason to recount that. Other than I think this was maybe the YouTube title of our last thing, but yeah, the hype for the expansion is
that was 2 episodes ago, I think. A lot of people replied talking about how hyped they were in the comments as well. So
I think they were mixed. There were definitely both types of comments.
It's not hyped.
Did you guys watch the cinematic?
It's not hyped within our community. Definitely. But the good news about that is we forget this often, but we are a very, very small representation of WoW players.
We are the best people to not be hyped because we are going to play it anyways. So
Yep. No matter what, there's a new WoW season, there's a new raid, new Mythic Plus season. Log in. That's always going to happen, right? So you don't need to really hype us up. It's more the Normans, the moles.
Which despite the comments on our videos, I do agree that it's probably a underhyped expansion compared to Dragonflight, which was hyped and also had a good launch, and then Shadowlands, which was hyped and had a bad launch. That was this one. I'm a little bit worried it's going to have a good launch, good systems, and just not really have that gas behind it for kind of hard to pin down reasons.
I'm not sure
what
good
Blizzard
game,
is doing wrong
people
with
will
it.
play it.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah,
it's fine. If the game is good, that is the most important thing. But it would be a shame if it was less than it could be because there wasn't the marketing or whatever. I don't know. Again, I don't even know if there is less marketing or whatever than usual, or if it's just aimed in different places than where I've been seeing them.
It definitely feels like we're slowly starting to ramp up the marketing.
Yeah, which is good. I mean, that's good as well, right? They shouldn't hype the expansion 4 months before it comes out.
Not too early. Yeah, because that's also a problem. If
they should pay us.
That's right.
True.
We would market the hell out of the game.
That's right. We've got a lot of viewers that don't play WoW that would, they hear us say, "Hey, you should play WoW," and they'd be like, "Oh, I've never heard of that game. That sounds sick." Yeah.
I'm ready to talk about how fucking great delves are if you're willing to pay up the big bucks.
People say that about my stream and this podcast, where they're like, I haven't played WoW in a while, but I still listen to the podcast or I still listen to your streams. And I just want to say, from the bottom of my heart, that makes absolutely no fucking sense.
No. We need these people. And we need you to not start playing WoW either unless we tell you to.
Unless we get paid the big bucks.
Oh, yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So if you're out there and you're not playing WoW, in fact, if you're out there and you can quit WoW for a little while, just so it gives us a little bit of leverage, that would be exceptional.
Dude, everyone who's listening to this should quit WoW.
That's right.
Until Blizzard pays us. They won't know that that's why these people have quit WoW, and we're kind of just hoping here, but I don't know.
Yeah.
No, but it is kind of true though, because when I look at how many views the latest cinematics have, it's not that high. like I remember the older expansion, like even the Shadowlands one. I mean, to be fair, that was during COVID, but the Shadowlands trailer was like it had a lot of views.
That trailer also
But
fucking slapped. Like I think that matters too. I think both of the last two trailers went hard as fuck, and I don't think this one didn't seem as good to me, at least. Like I wasn't. I remember watching the BFA cinematic. I remember watching the Shadowlands cinematic. I just remember being like, "Holy fuck, they cooked with this." And I didn't
those
get
were
that
hype.
feeling. I didn't get that feeling at all from the recent one.
I don't even know what's happening, to be honest.
Did you guys know that there was some content creators that got like Blizzard? I think it was like a Blizzard marketing thing. I think it was a hashtag ad, but they like had like the Xalatath. Is that her name? Shadow
Yeah.
Girl.
Oh yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
see that.
Xalatath, the voice actor, like
Gotcha.
have a like she did like a personalized thing, like Taliesin and Evitel was one of them, and they were like, Taliesin and Evitel, you are whatever, the scourge of the earth or whatever crazy shit. And then like it looked like she was like overtaking their stream or their video or something like that. And I thought that was pretty cool, unique.
Yeah.
Didn't Tim the Tatman have something like that too?
Yeah, there was a lot
Batman,
of
he likes
a-
WoW.
a lot of there's a part of me that anytime you see one of those things, you're like, damn it, why didn't they pick me for this? That was just so cool. I would have loved to.
Yeah, I didn't hear
to
anything
have
about
one of those. Yeah, but yeah, I
But
thought it
also
was
they
sick.
don't. It's kind of weird. Like, as much as you always want to feel respected by the company, and I'm doing a thing coming up with Blizzard for this expansion. I did one in Dragonflight that was amazing. They like made an escape room and they let me fly out and they paid my friends to do it. Like, it was insanely cool. So definitely not complaining about opportunities with Blizzard at all. But like, what I'm saying is Blizzard, and I shouldn't be saying this, is like Blizzard probably doesn't need me to advertise my audience. But
Right.
wow, like I mean, they probably there's a really strong chance they're gonna do that. So you don't really need to do that. But so like when you saw a lot of the people they reached out to, there were like a very few WoW creators, some in the MMO space, and then like mostly just trying to get awareness. It was a good it looked like really cool marketing to me, right? Except I can imagine there were people who are not following the story behind the War Within, and they were just like, "Who the fuck is this? Like, this isn't like some iconic WoW villain or whatever." It's like, what are you talking about?
Well, because I mean, this expansion is really the story is not. It's not like Legion or BFA or whatever, where it's like, here's all these iconic WoW characters, going into new situations. Like, here's Xalatath, who, if you didn't play Shadow Priest and Legion, if you weren't following super closely the Unat and the Zoth storylines, like, you would have no idea that Xalatath existed until now or any of her bits. So I don't know. It's. I think that it's cool that they're moving into this kind of like 3 expansion thing with the storyline, but they're very much, they don't have that it's Illidan, you guys know who it is thing to kind of hook people in who are casual WoW lore people.
Yeah, but I think that's kind of a big risk. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of those people carried WoW for many, many years. And while people were going wild when Metzen was bringing this shit up at BlizzCon, like, it's you can actually maybe even kind of look at Marvel, right? So, like, Marvel had this thing going for a long time. They had, like, Iron Man. It's like that was always a pull. And then you added all these other people and these people you followed, and they had them collaborate for a few Avengers movies, and then it, like, culminated in Endgame. And then, well, kind of spoilers for Endgame. But like some of those people die or are no longer part of a lot of the really characters, they weren't going to just do that forever. A lot of those characters are no longer like part of the story in some way. Guardians of the Galaxy recently, like they're kind of like indefinitely not doing stuff. And then like clearly there is a lot of people that aren't super invested in the new Avengers or like the new MCU recently, even though like a lot of the projects I thought that people didn't really like were actually like pretty good, right? It's just that like the bar is set so high and maybe that's the reason, but it's kind of like that in WoW, right? Like there's this part of people's childhood that are WoW characters, the Lich King and Thrall and Jaina and all those people, right? And I wonder how hard it's going to be, Chris Metzen and all, to get a large group of people to really, really care about a bunch of characters they have barely met before. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there is like Thrall and Anduin are kind of core to the story too, but I think they've been sort of sidelined in the cinematics, except for that first one, which I don't know.
Anduin's hot now. Saw that.
That's true.
Looking good.
These things happen. Yeah. That's I don't know, the villain. I think that Xalatath as a villain is super compelling. So I think that they just need to like I think that she'll stick if she has some good beats in the first few patches here, but we'll see. I'm hopeful, but I agree with you. It's a risk, right? Like you can't go wrong if you just bring back Illidan again, but you can if you try and elevate a new character.
I think the problem is they needed Zalatath to do something in the cinematic, like because
Yeah,
I
she
don't
should have
know.
blown up a city or something. Like
Like if she did something like what Sylvanas did, then I would
Yeah,
have
that's
been
right.
like, holy shit, like this is crazy. But I
Bang.
literally have no idea what the hell's happening. I just know she's like a character and everyone loves her. Like I have absolutely no idea what's going on.
Dude, for a bit there, I thought you were stifling a yawn because it was late, Max, but you just been stifling a laugh. What you been? You just
I've been
the
laughing
lore.
so hard. Okay, it's
Yeah.
like maybe people will they're watching this and they can rewind it, but like Riptar just got on my couch and stretched and just showed his like whole ass to the camera. And then just like turned around and slept, and it was like right next to my face. Like you can see him sleeping right now, and I was just like, "Why the fuck did he do that? He never does that." But he just like fucking showed his whole ass to the camera. Anyways, I'm sure some people will get a kick
Legendary.
out of that when they see it. I just couldn't stop laughing. I just thought it was so specific and funny. I've never seen this dog do this before in my life. Wow.
Wow. All right. On that note, I think we've covered our full list of topics for this week, our extensive list of topics. So we'll be back next week and the week after. Dude, what's there
What
going to be
list
to
do we
talk
even
about for
have?
the next
I
2 weeks,
don't even.
man?
I don't even see this list.
Well,
The list is a bit dorky. We never had a list. We were
Oh.
going to make up the episode, and then Dratnos is trying to make it seem like we're prepared and responsible, but we're not.
Okay, all right, I see.
But you ruined it.
Yeah, I didn't give us a
now
program.
everyone knows that it's not a thing.
yeah,
And
Alright,
everyone believed it before that as well.
that's true. I think were it not for that bit, they would have believed us. They would have thought, wow, this is a well organized episode.
Did we do the Patreon question?
No.
You
we have one?
guys, we got to do the Patreon question before we
Oh
go.
yeah.
Oh,
All right, this one. Ooh, wow, it's a long one as well. Wow. Here we
Holy
go.
shit.
All right, this one comes from an Ellie Shaman main after all that says, okay, maybe the title is a tiny bit bait. Ooh, and the title has been removed by Frank as well, so maybe it really was bait. But with us only now entering tuning phase and design changes still not completely out of the question yet, looking back at the dev cycle for War Within beta, it seems to me like Blizzard seems a bit whimsy in their decisions. I'm not sure what whimsy means in this context. There's been quite a few examples of them adding changes to the game that you could reasonably assume were not planned.
Definitely.
M plus changes are one of them. Shaman changes, specifically enhanced, are probably another.
Yep.
Like
they,
Sky.
they literally said
Yeah.
like we're not doing enhanced changes, and enhanced people were like no, and then they did, and then, like
Yeah.
afterwards,
Yeah.
like so, and then the Mythic Plus changes, they were like, this is what you're gonna get in the expansion, and then we were all like, well, that fucking sucks, and they're like, just kidding, here's a complete new... No, sorry. Then they had a post, and they were like, oh well, we won't we're actually just doing these season 4 changes, and then that's it. And they like specifically said that. And then like a week later, people were like, okay, you know what? You didn't like those affixes that we removed and added? Okay, cool. They're just gone now. Like, right? Like they clearly were yellow.
Yeah.
They need to go back on the tank changes. That's what. Holy, like.
Yeah.
Clearly, this is not intended, right? The whole tank changes. It's funny too, actually, because
intended.
they said the same thing in Dragonflight. I was actually looking at something from like 2 years ago. It looked like exactly what they were saying now.
Yeah. So a lot of the question is the stuff we were just talking about then is like, were these changes planned? And I agree with you guys. Definitely that these were things that they changed their minds on mid dev cycle. So
That's what he meant by whimsy. This is an interesting way to put that.
Yeah, I assume. Yeah, and I will say as well, I think we are out of the design changes portion of the I think the biggest thing they could do is revert the tank changes, for instance. Like they could do those sorts of things. I think we're past the point of anything on the scale of the affix rework or even the Sky Fury edition. Although maybe there's still some time for one more thing like that. But I think there's just so much tuning that needs to happen in the next few weeks that I think we are past that being possible. So let me jump back into the question here, skip a couple of lines that we talked about already. If this is how development works now, what does that mean for the player base? Do we all have to channel our inner Moonkins and write petitions to get changes? Would we have gone with a few hundred more lines of mage changes if the shaman changes hadn't been protested into existence? Don't get me wrong, I think them listening to feedback is important, but Blizzard should probably rethink their communication strategy as well if they want to keep going like this and let the players know what they actually want feedback on. Still, this dev cycle has earned Blizzard some trust in terms of listening to players in my book, but the jury is still out on how some of these changes and the short notice they came with will impact the quality of the final product. On the plus side, though, this dev cycle has already procced 2 emergency potties, so no complaints from me on that end. Okay, is it a good or bad thing, I guess? I don't know. I feel like a agile dev team that comes into a beta cycle and then does some stuff during that beta cycle based on what the most commonly requested problems are,
Yeah, it's a good thing.
I think that is a good thing, not a bad thing.
Yeah.
I do think it means as a player base, yeah, we need to be giving feedback. You know, it matters kind of how we vote with which topics we talk about as a community, us as content creators, but you know, people on the forums as well. I think if you listen to the devs talk, they will often reference specific forum posts that got passed around the office a lot that were like, this is, you know, I think there was that big post about raid problems, for instance, that they referenced a lot in a lot of their philosophy since then.
So when I spoke to a few of the community managers there, they kind of told me what their day is like, and really what it is compiling information from all kinds of sources. It could be a tweet, it could be a YouTube video, it could be a Twitch stream, it could be a popular clip, it could be a forum post, it could be a twitlonger, it could be anything. And their job is to get, it could be a podcast of class Discord people, it could be us, whatever, like that. And their job is to put that in the hands of the DK designer or the quest designer or the person that would react to that feedback. There are people there who are literally their job to sweep the internet and find that kind of stuff. So, which would, I guess, probably maybe seem obvious. But yeah, they do all of that. So if the point of this is to say like, hey, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. If you have an issue with it, say something. That is absolutely true. Classes that complain get changes. That is a fact, right? Look at Enhanced Shamans. Prime example. You mentioned it in this thing. Enhanced Shamans were really fucking mad that they were the last class to be left out. And they got changes because they got really mad about it. That is a fact. That if they would have just said whatever, they wouldn't have gotten any changes for sure. They like said they weren't going to do it. So if you got no pushback on that, they wouldn't have done it. So but this is really important to all of you to not be like Moonkins. Like I know like it could happen that if you all complain that much that all of your classes could be better, but think about what kind of world we'd be living in, right? Like that's fucking brutal. So
yeah.
So don't do that. Like try to pick and choose your time. Don't be like them. Be above them, right?
That's right. Yeah, then you can.
I do wish like the way they worded some of their blue posts, like the wording in the blue post sometimes is not the best.
Dude, the tank changes post,
one,
man.
Yeah, or that one. Like I'm just thinking about the tank changes one. I'm thinking about like the affix post,
the Covenant one. Oh my god.
I'm thinking about the raid buff posts. Yeah, the Covenant posts. Like
Covenant
a lot of these
one's
posts,
an all-time bad one. Yeah.
And they've never really like addressed their philosophy or like why exactly they're going with these approach or like why they decide to back out on these approach, right? Like it's usually something we hear about 2-3 years later. It's like, okay, you know, like looking back in Shadowlands, it was bad, but it's like, you know, we kind of need that now, and we kind of need to like sort of understand what exactly is going on. And it's like what Ellie Shaman Main said, it seems kind of all over the place, and we just don't really understand what is happening ourselves. Yeah, I wish there was like a little bit more communication on that, and especially for like classes too. Like I don't know how much communication the classes get, but it does feel like a lot of classes just are kind of left behind without really anything said about them. And it would be nice if there was just something out there that was like, oh, you know, like, yeah, we noticed Boomkins have this problem, or like maybe we want Boomkins to be this way. Like at least we would know.
Yeah.
All right. I think that now is us about finished with our long list of things and the Patreon question, which I did not forget. And yeah, mentioned the dorky Patreon bedtime story.
Yeah, check.
Done everything.
And how many more potties do we have before the expansion is out?
2, and then
Or
early
2 now.
access would start on the 3rd, like the same day that we would usually record the 3rd from now.
Wow.
That's crazy.
It does not feel like a WoW expansion is about to come out, I'll tell you that. But
Yeah.
Wait,
Woo.
you just gotta start ramping up the content.
yeah.
All right.
Goodbye.
Farewell.